All right, 2.3 has to do with the factored form of quadratics. So we need to know how to factor. So this worksheet was all about factoring quadratics. We're going to start with some basic factoring, and then we're going to use factoring to solve for x in these quadratic equations on the other side. All right, so let's just start with some basic factoring. So if the coefficient in front of x squared, right, the a value is 1, so in this case, right, there's nothing written there, so that a value is 1. We can use the standard x method, right? We're just trying to find two numbers that multiply to -12 and add to +1, okay? So the two numbers here, if we go down the list, right, -12, the factors for -12. You could do 1 times -12, right, 1 times -12. You could do 2 times -6. You could do 3 times -4. You could also switch the negative to the other number, right? So we could do -1 times 12, -2 times 6, and -3 times 4. So those are all the factors that multiply to -12. Which one of them are going to add up to a +1? That's going to be -3 and 4. So my factors here are going to be x minus 3 and x plus 4. All right, next one. Again, a is 1, right? The coefficient in front of x squared is 1, so a is going to be 1. So we can just use that traditional x method. Okay, 35. We need two numbers that multiply to 35 and add to -12. So 35, you could do 1 times 35. You could do -1 times -35. You can do 5 times 7. And you can do -5 times -7. So of those possibilities, which ones add up to -12? It's going to be -5 and -7. So our factors here are x minus 5 and x minus 7. Right? We could also pick, let's see, let's just do one more here. Let's do one more. Okay, so x method, right? Because the coefficient is 1, so we need two numbers that multiply to, let me check my microphone. We need two numbers that multiply to -18 and add to -3. So again, for -18, these possibilities could be +1 times -18. Could also be -1 times +18. 3 times -6, or -3 times +6. It could also be 2 times -9, or -2 times 9. So we want them to add up to -3, the B number, right? The C goes on top, right? C and B. Right, add up to C. I'm sorry, multiply to C, add up to B. That's going to be 3 and -6, right? 3 times -6 is -18. 3 plus -6 is -3. So it's going to be x plus 3. And then x minus 6. Right. But sometimes the value in front of x squared, the a value, sometimes it's not going to be 0. Sometimes it's going to be something other than 0. I'm sorry, sometimes it's not going to be 1. It's going to be something other than 1, right? So let's look at number 7 as an example. Okay, so a here is 20. So I can't use the traditional x method. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand it out, and we're going to multiply to something that we want to find something that multiplies to a times c. and we want to find something that adds up to b. So in this case, a times c is going to be 20 times negative 15, which is negative 300. Okay. B here is going to be negative 13. So we need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 300 and add up to negative 13. So what I like to do, if I have a calculator here, okay, is I like to just start with 300 and start dividing things that I think are going to be divisible by 300. So I know it's going to be evenly divisible by 2, right? It's got to be one positive, one negative. So they're going to have the difference between them is going to have to be 13. So 2 and 150, that's not going to work. I could try 10. Right, the distance between 10 and 30 is 20, so that's not going to work. I could try 20, maybe. 20 and 15, the distance there is 5. So I need to keep looking, maybe 12. 25, the distance between 12 and 25 here is going to be 13. So let's see, to get negative 13, that's got to be a negative 25 and a positive 12, right? These two numbers multiply the 300, right? And if the 25 is negative, they're going to add up to negative 13. Right? So I can split my b now into negative 25x and 12x. I could expand it out. Okay, so I have 20x squared minus 25x plus 12x minus 15. So I'm going to take this 13x here, and I'm going to expand it by splitting it up into negative 25x and 12x. Right? Now I'm going to factor the first two terms and the last two terms. So I'm going to start by looking at these two terms here. Okay, and then I'm going to look at the last two terms. Okay, so in those first two terms, 20 and 20x squared minus 25x. I'm looking for the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor there is going to be 5x, right? So the 20x squared minus 25x, right? 20 can really be split into 4 times 5 times x times x. The 25 can be split into 5 times 5 times x. So what do we have in common? We have a 5, right? And we have an x. Okay, we could even split this further, right? Into, if you wanted to split into prime numbers, 2 times 2 times 5. Right? But what we have in common here is 5x. Okay, what do we have left? We have 2 times 2 times x. That's going to be 4x. What do we have left over here? We have negative 5, and that's it. So minus 5. For the next one, 12x minus 15, right? This could be 3 times 5. So if we pull a 3 here, that's going to be 3 times 4 times x, right? So what do we have in common? We have not a 5, we have a 3 in common, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out a 3 or factor out a 3. What do I have left? I have 4x and then minus 5. If I work backwards, 5x times 4x is 20x squared. 5x times negative 5 is negative 25x. 3 times 4x is 12x. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Okay. If I go backwards and distribute, right, that's how we go. That's what I just said, right? 5x times 4x, 20x squared. 5x times negative 5 is negative 25x, right? So if you work backwards, it should match up. Okay, now we have two terms here. And we know each term has a 4x minus 5. So we're going to factor out a 4x minus 5. Right? That's this and this. Okay. And then what do we have left in the first term? We have 5x. And in the second term, we have plus 3. So that's going to be my factor. All right, let's look at number 12 would be a good one, I think. Okay, let's look at number 12. All right, so I noticed that A here is not 1, it's 15. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to expand this 8x. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do A times C. So 15 times negative 16, which is negative 240. And I need something that adds to 8. Okay, 240 is a pretty even number. It's going to be divisible by 2. It's going to be divisible by 5. It's going to be divisible by 10. Looks like it's probably going to be divisible by 3. Probably going to be divisible by 12, right? So let's go try some possibilities here. 240. Okay, and again, it's negative, so that means you're going to have one positive, one negative. So we're looking for the difference between them needs to be 8. So let's do 240 divided by 2. 120. So the difference between 2 and 120 is 118. That's way too big. So we need a much bigger number than 2. How about 120 divided by 10? 12. The distance between 10 and 12 is 2. So probably 120. It should be 2. I'm sorry. So I did 240 divided by 2. 120. It doesn't work. So now I'm going to do 240 divided by 10. That's 24. Okay. So that's not going to work. How about 20? 240 divided by 20. 12. There you go. 10, 20, and 12. The distance between 20 and 12 is going to be 8. So since it's a positive 8, that looks like it's got to be negative 12 and positive 20. Right, positive 20. So if I go back to my problem here. Okay, I'm going to split this 8x into negative 12x plus 20x. So 15x squared minus 12x plus 20x minus 16. Right, and I think we can agree negative 12x plus 20x gets us back to our original 8x. So we haven't changed the question at all. We've just expanded out 8x into negative 12x plus 20x. Okay, now we're going to factor the first two terms and the last two terms. So we're going to factor out the first two terms. Right, and then we're going to factor the last two terms. So the first two terms, 15x squared minus 12x. So 12, again, you could do, if you 4 times 3, or you could say 2 times 2 times 3, right? If you get all the way down. This one, you got 5 times 3 times x times x. So what do we have in common? We got 3, and we have x. So our greatest common factor there is 3x. What do you have left? You have 5x, and then 2 times 2 is minus 4. Okay, so 3x, and then we have 5x minus 4. If you go backwards, 3x times 5x is 15x squared. 3x times negative 4 is negative 12x. Okay, 20x minus 16. So you can split that into 4 times 5, and then 4 can become 2 times 2 times 5. All right, 2 times 2 is 4, times 5 is 20. And then this could be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? So what do we have in common? We have 2 times 2, which is 4. So we're going to pull out a 4. And then what do you have left? You have 5x minus 4. Right, and again, if you work backwards here, 4 times 5x is 20x. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Okay, now we have two terms here. The 5x minus 4, we can factor out of both of them. And then what we have left in the first term is 3x. What we have left in the second term is plus 4, and those are my two factors. All right, let's do one more for factoring. Okay, so what I notice here is I notice they're all even. So that means I can divide everything by 2. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna factor out a 2. So if I factor out a 2, I'm gonna get 25x squared plus 30x plus 9. That's gonna help me because it's gonna give me some smaller numbers to work with. Okay, so now when I factor, instead of doing 50 times 18, I'm gonna do 25 times 9, which is 225. And I need something that adds up to 30. Okay. 225 is going to be divisible by 5. It's going to be divisible by, let's see, 15, 25. So let's try 5. Right? 225 divided by 5. 45. In this case, we're going to have to add them because it's positive. So 5 plus 45 is 50, not 30. 225 divided by 25. 25 and 9 do not add up to 30. Let's try 15. Should be 15 squared, right? 15 times 15. Yep. So 15 times 15 is 225. 15 plus 15 is going to be 30. So we have 15 and 15. So when we're doing this, we're going to expand out the 30x into 15x and 15x. So we have 25x squared plus 15x plus 15x plus 9, right? And then we can factor the first two terms and the last two terms, right? We're looking for greatest common factor. The greatest common factor between 25x squared and 15x is going to be 5x. Right, what's left here is going to be 5x, right? 5x times 5x is 25x plus 5x times 3 is what's going to give me 15x plus, okay, greatest common factor between 15 and 9 is going to be 3. So I'm going to factor out a 3. 3 times 5x is going to give me 15x. And then 3 times 3 is going to give me 9. Okay. So then I have 5x plus 3. And then what do I have left? I have 5x plus 3. So my two factors here are going to be 5x plus 3 and 5x plus 3. Right? And that was number 15. Okay, I'm going to do a separate video for the ones where we have to solve.